Only three.
Okay.
I just moved it. I might have broken it.
I doubt it.
But at that time he was already going to
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice to see all of you.
Haribo.
So you'll all be here this weekend.
Haribo.
We have a really nice weekend planned for you, for all of us, actually. And we're very fortunate to have a special guest, Amala and
Harinaam.
and Nadiya. So we're very happy to have them with it. And of course,
Haribo.
The first time to Portland.
First time. So, and my dear wife. And I'm here too. So, tonight is just an informal night, so we're going to ask you to all move up. so we can do kirtan together. We'll have kirtan, and then I asked Nadiya and Amala if they would share some of their journey with poetry. So we'll do that. We can start with Mangal Chime. We can all sing together, please.
Hare
Krishna
travel, I do kirtan in different places, and when you're with a group of people you haven't been with before and you lead kirtan, you're always that first, what's going to come back, right? So, thank you so much for singing so nicely. I wanted to ask, is Nadiya around?
I'll have to swap with her.
Okay. I wanted to ask, I've been thinking a lot about this weekend, obviously, and we've got some really wonderful topics to discuss. I think that will be heartwarming and strengthening our faith in the Holy Name and deepening our practice of the Holy Name, both as individuals and as a group, because it's the Sankirtan movement, so we're dependent on each other, dependent on the association of devotees too. I think one of my godbrothers used to say, we either go back to Godhead altogether or not at all. So this chanting is something that we do in the association of devotees. It's Sankirtan, Yugadam is together, Sankirtan. So I've been thinking a lot about that and how our journey in our spiritual life is really a journey with the Holy Name, because Kali Kalenana Rupa, Krishna Avatar, Krishna appears in the sage of Kali, is his holy name. And he's so kind and he's so merciful. So Amala and Nadiya have taken birth in the family of devotees and grown up, and I just to twist their arm and to, anyway. Also, I'm very, very curious, but I wanted to ask them if they would share their journey, because not everyone that takes birth in the family of devotees becomes a devotee. They don't necessarily make that choice, because even if you're born in a family of devotees, you still have to join at some point and make it your personal decision. And so they've done that, and so I wanted to ask them about their journey. Would that be interesting to you to hear that? Arduous. I'm also a very shy person, so. I was born. Hare Krishna, everyone. I think so much of Krishna consciousness is reflecting actually on your experiences that you have in Krishna consciousness. I don't do it as much as I should, but I guess this gives me an opportunity to look back and piece together what brought me here. So, obviously, I acknowledge that so much of who I am today is due to the compassion and the love and the mercy of those other devotees who have real taste for chanting the holy name of Krishna. I can never remember a time when I wasn't chanting. My mother said that before I could even crawl, I was, playing mridanga on a oats tin, and she said in their house, it was a preaching center in Lansing, Michigan, where I was born. She said the first time they didn't own a harmonium, and so I had never seen one, but she said someone brought one, and I could barely crawl yet, she said, and she said the first time I saw one, I got really excited, and I scooted over to it,
and I started trying to pump it. And she said, "You'd never seen one before, so I don't know how you knew what to do with it." So I didn't even know that until recently. But throughout my childhood, going to Krishna conscious schools and being under the guidance of so many different devotees, obviously they saw a attraction towards doing kirtan. And from earliest I can remember, maybe 7 years old, I was being encouraged by His Holiness Bir Krishna Swami in the New Goloka community in North Carolina to lead the Tulsi Puja, the Guru Puja, Mangalartik. I just remember always throughout my childhood leading these stand-up kirtans, these artiks, and playing mridanga. It's from a very young age. And so obviously some natural attraction was there, natural talent. And I think, and then I hit my teenage years, and probably from the age of 13, 14 until 17, I would say I kind of, maybe lost that taste, you could say. I discovered non-devotional Western music, and I got really into it. My first band was Linkin Park, if anyone knows, that I really loved, and got into Metallica, got into different rap, and I enjoyed this music, and yeah, I guess you could say I took a break from kirtan. Back then also, there wasn't, at least in my community, there wasn't the culture of sitting down and doing Hare Krishna kirtan, there weren't other talented kirtan singers to kind of inspire me. So I hadn't really discovered what was out there yet, actually. And then the real turning point for me, throughout that time period, I remember here and there coming to the temple and still leading kirtans sometimes, I didn't lose the ability, you could say. But I was known as the kirtan kid, but it wasn't really a passion of mine. I just didn't have the association really to so-called get into kirtan. I didn't have other great mridanga players to look to, etc., absorb kind of. And so the turning point for me, looking back, was at 17. I went on my first ISKCON Youth Ministry North American bus tour with Manorama and Jai Shri Radhe. And somehow it was discovered that, hey, Amal leads nice kirtans, so let's engage him in the stage programs, the Rath Yatras, the Harinaams that we do. And somehow I was just asked to lead, and somehow every Rath Yatra we went to, I was singing in the parade. I was like that. It just reawoken. That summer is when I discovered the Mayapuris, Bali, Kish, Juggy. Vish wasn't, I think he was still traveling with Lokanath Swami. But basically I was exposed to really nice kirtan and really talented kirtan, players, instrument players. And it just awoken like a fire for me, I can say. And in that short 2-month period, by the end of it, I knew I had to move to Alachua, which is known kind of as the kirtan capital in the U.S. So many talented kirtaniyas, you can say, have come out of there. And it's Bada Haridas' hometown for a while. It's been. His children were raised there, and I knew by the end of the tour I need to be in the association of those who are doing kirtan, and I naturally lost complete taste for non-devotional music. I remember coming home to North Carolina and hanging out with all of my friends and just being quite depressed, actually, because they hadn't gone on the bus tour and experienced what I had experienced, and they turned on the music, and I just did not feel any satisfaction listening to it anymore. And back then there weren't really kirtan recordings out. The internet wasn't saturated with them yet. Live kirtans weren't really recorded so much. And there was one person who had given me a CD that had a collection of a few live kirtans that were done in Alachua. This was 2005. I went on this bus tour and I was 17 years old. And so I remember just listening to that CD on repeat and just becoming totally attracted to this kirtan and wanting to be in that kirtan and experience that kirtan. And I knew I just had to move to Alachua. And when I turned 18, I moved out of my parents' house. I moved to Alachua, and thus began kind of my journey, you can say, being in that association. Something really nice and wonderful that it's not going on anymore, but it was organized that they would hold Wednesday night bhajans for the Gurukulis, second generation, the youth basically, every Wednesday, and it would be at a different person's house they would host. We would do kirtan, sit down kirtan for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we would eat and hang out, and it was just like the really great midweek point that we would all get together and do kirtan. And so I just remember totally looking forward to that every week. It was just so exciting to me to be in those kirtans with such talented people. And then the next turning point that happened for me was I had the opportunity to go to India in February 2007, and that's when I went to Vrindavan Gurukula in 1998 for 1 year, and I hadn't been back to Vrindavan since then. So I remember it was like 7, 8, 9 years or so since I had been back to Vrindavan, and I was now 2007, I think I was 19 by then. And we went to Vrindavan, but we only spent like 4 days there. But by that time, I had started to hear more kirtans of Ayendra Prabhu from Vrindavan, and then it hit me that actually I've been listening to him my whole life. My parents used to play the Vrindavan Mellows cassettes in the morning when we're getting ready in the bathroom, and I realized I subconsciously knew so many melodies from listening to those tapes as a young child. And so by that time in 2007, I became very attracted to him and his kirtans. And that when we went to Vrindavan, I just remember looking forward to every evening going and participating in his kirtan at 6:30 in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And it was just something completely different, the way he performed his kirtan, the way his team were in sync with him. And kirtan kind of, at least in the U.S., there was the influence kind of maybe Bengali style, but also Ayendra Prabhu's melodies were there. But usually you would have one mridanga player per kirtan, or if there were multiple, you'd take turns. Every 2 mantras you'd play and then rotate. The next you'd stop, the next person would play. But here in Ayendra Prabhu's kirtan was the first time I saw mridanga players playing in unison, just real synchronicity, playing the same beats. Everyone was just on the same page, and it was like a real kirtan band, you could say. And it just really blew my mind. And really, after that, I went to Mayapur, and ever since the installation of Panchatattva in 2004, him and his team were invited to come perform kirtan in front of Panchatattva in the temple room in Mayapur for 5 nights before Gaur Purnima, kind of as a, like a festival. And I remember him and Lokanath Swami would also lead. It would just be for like 3 hours in the evening, like 7 to 10 or so, after Gaur Artik. But in 2007, so he came with his team, and again it was just, and now it was on a bigger scale in that big temple room, and they were all just like really focused, and like this is his team, and he did like some style of kirtans that I had never heard before, some rhythms that were completely new to me. Anyways, it just really blew my mind, and I was able, at that time, someone was selling his MP3 kirtan, live kirtans, a compilation from 2000 until 2006. And on each MP3 CD, you just had like 20 kirtans or so. And so I bought all 6, and I just remember having I must have over 100 kirtans to listen to now. And I got back to Alachua, and I went on the bus tour again in 2007, and it kind of, that 2 months of more intensive kirtan leading and just doing kirtan so much more, on the stage and at the Rath Yatras, Harinaams, that it just more and more okay, wow, I really like doing this. I'm really attracted to this. I want to learn more melodies, etc. And basically, a year went by, and I kind of listened to all of Ayendra Prabhu's kirtans almost every day. Not all of them in one day, but every day I was listening to his kirtans, and I was really becoming just attracted to the idea of going there to Vrindavan and joining his 24-hour kirtan team, and to do that service and to be in kirtan with him and assist him. And by 2008 summer, I went on the bus tour again, my 3rd bus tour, and I remember that year we had a really star-studded cast of kirtaniyas. Achyuta Gopi was on it, Bali was on it, Kalindi, now lives in Dallas, Janavi Harrison was on it, Akinchana Krishna Prabhu. And out of those, Akinchana Krishna Prabhu was one devotee that had spent time on the 24-hour kirtan in 2002 and had Ayendra Prabhu's association and experienced serving in the 24-hour kirtan. And so I just remember that whole bus tour just completely picking his brain and asking him questions about what Ayendra Prabhu is like, and he just had all these really nice stories to tell and anecdotes, and the attraction just grew deeper and deeper. I need to go. And by that time, I think I was 20, and I was just kind of then getting on my feet and settling in Alachua. I finally had my first job. I was working at Krishna.com, Manarama Prabhu had gotten me that job. He was always like an older brother, you know, from the bus tour. And so I was kind of feeling like more settled and secure in Alachua, but still this burning desire was there to go to Vrindavan and join Ayendra Prabhu. And so that summer in 2008, hearing from Akinchana Krishna all about how wonderful it is and how much I would be appreciated for my kirtan service there, I just really, I decided I have to go. But like I said, I was finally kind of settling in Alachua, and I remember just being really conflicted. What should I do? Because like now I'm finally on my feet a little, and I was at the time living in an apartment with Bali and Kish, two of my great kirtan inspirations, and life just seemed a bit easier at that point. But what do I do? Do I just leave it all and go to Vrindavan? And so I remember we do this, what's called driver keeper upper on the bus tour, and because we drive at night, we have bunk beds built in the buses, and you know, obviously in North America it's long distances between the temples, so we drive at night, and in the day we'll do different activities along the way. We'll stop and do camping, canoeing, etc., whitewater rafting, hiking. So at night was when we would do the driving, and every hour a different participant takes a turn sitting with the driver and talking, so that there's just never any accidents. No one ever falls asleep, you know, hopefully guaranteed. And so I remember it was towards the end of the tour, and all summer I'd just been like trying to I was conflicted. What should I do? What should I do? Should I stay or should I go? And so I remember Manarama was the driver that night, and my turn came up, and I sat with him talking, and the whole hour was going by, and I was like really scared to ask him what should I do, because I know he had gotten me this nice job working with devotees only 6 months earlier, and I didn't want to let them down and just leave, you know. And so the whole hour I was like, how do I ask him? And finally the last like 3 minutes of my hour shift were coming up, and I just said, I have a question. And he was like, yeah, go ahead. And I was like, I don't know what to do, because I really want to go do kirtan with Ayendra Prabhu. And he didn't even let me finish the sentence. He just said, just do it. And I was a little shocked, because, you know, he had helped me get this job, and now I'm quitting on him, kind of. He wasn't the head manager, but, you know, he got me that job. And he saw immediately the benefit it would have for me and my spiritual life to go and do this spiritual activity that I had a strong desire for. And so him saying that was just like the tipping point. I just felt totally peaceful, totally happy, secure, like, okay, just do it. Like, don't worry about what's going to happen down the road, or etc., or how you're going to survive, or whatever. And I just thought, okay, I'm going. And soon after the tour, like, I booked my ticket, and I went to Vrindavan in October. And I remember the first night being there. By that time, I was kind of a little bit established as a kirtan leader. Amongst our generation, they knew, hey, Amala leads nice kirtans. Like, so the opportunity was there at places for me to lead. And I had friends already in Vrindavan, and I knew some of the devotees there serving on the 24-hour kirtan. So the day I arrived, I went for the evening kirtan, and they invited me to come sit and lead. And I remember leading this kirtan, and it hit 6:30, and all of a sudden I look and Ayendra Prabhu is coming in with his portable harmonium to come lead his kirtan, and as he was kind of like coming to sit down, he would usually sit right against this pillar right here in between Radha Shamsundar and Krishna Balaram. So I was just kind of in front of it leading the kirtan, and as soon as he came I just was like, oh, Ayendra Prabhu is here, and I like stopped, and he patted me on the back and he's like, no, keep going, he encouraged me. And so I was just leading still, and I like turned back at him like, are you ready now? And he was just smiling at me, clapping, and I just felt like so immediately secure and so accepted and so encouraged just by that. And I remember then I like, he wasn't rushing me to finish, but then like 2 minutes, then I finished and then put the microphone to him. And I remember, I think he just kept it going. Sometimes he would let the kirtan stop, start a new melody, etc. And sometimes you would pass the mic, because he had his harmonium. You wouldn't even have to move the harmonium. He would be already playing along with the kirtan leader. And you pass the mic and he would just take over and just take it to a new place, a new dimension. Maybe he would continue the melody, or maybe he would just switch it. But the idea was the Maha Mantra never stopped, and the kirtan energy just kept building, you could say. And I think he just took over from my melody, and I just thought that was so cool. He thought it was a good enough melody to, of course it was his melody, but he took it over, and I just turned, and I would say, this is him, they're the deities. And I just remember like my first day there, I'm sitting next to Ayendra Prabhu helping him sing. Because he did so much kirtan over the years, and living in India with the pollution and the dust, he had a lot of throat problems, and also singing high a lot caused a lot of strain on his vocal cords. So for the last 10 years or so, he would always require or request multiple devotees to sit close to him and help him lead the kirtan. So that means following the notes on the harmonium, following his voice, and actually boosting it, kind of helping him sing it, lead the kirtan. And so I always dreamed of doing that, helping him in that way. And of course playing mridanga for him, I was very looking forward to as well. But that first day, it's like he was engaging me and I was helping him lead the kirtan. And so then began kind of the next part of my kirtan journey. And I remember that, I have a few memories that stand out that like kind of really made an impact on me. And I feel like the next experience that had it kind of like impact on me was he used to lead the kirtan in Srila Prabhupada's room on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. Every Kartik, he would lead that kirtan at the time Srila Prabhupada passed away. All the Prabhupada disciples would sit around Prabhupada's bed, and people would come through for darshan. And during that, he would be leading a more quiet kirtan, and he would just be allowed kind of 2-3 men to help him, help him in his kirtan. It wasn't like his whole team could come. They needed this sitting space for all of the Prabhupada disciples. But somehow that was his kind of offering and service. Every year he got to kind of lead that. And I listened, I had a few recordings of the previous years, like 2004, 5, 6, and 7. And I just remember, because they were done in such a different style than his public in the temple room, 6:30 right before Artik, rock and roll, like engage the whole crowd, kirtan. They were done differently than that, in a much deeper, quieter mood, and for longer. It could be like 2 hours, And so I always remember listening to those and being so attracted to those and thinking one day I want to be able to do that. And so that kartik, my first kartik there, it's 3 weeks in, and it's Prabhupada's disappearance day, and I heard like, oh yeah, he's only allowed like 2 people, so there's no chance, you know, the mridanga player and maybe a kartal player. And so I didn't even bother asking, you know, but I remember going through for darshan, and like, you know, you gotta walk through and you can't stay in forever. So I just remember walking through and just seeing him doing kirtan, and I was just like, God, I wish I was there, you know. But I couldn't stay long. But then actually afterwards, his mridanga player came up to me and said, yeah, actually, no, Ayendra Prabhu was asking for you. I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, he said, where's that big devotee, what's his name? I wanted him to come help me sing. And so I was just like, wow, he thought of me to come help him in his little kirtan, you know, like only 3 people are allowed, but he didn't even really know my name yet, but he could perceive my enthusiasm and my desire to serve the kirtan and assist him in kirtan. So he didn't make that comment to me, but the devotee told me, and I felt just so much happiness that he was acknowledging me, you know. And so time went by. I stayed 6 months, but I didn't actually join the 24-hour kirtan during that period. I didn't take up the responsibility of 6 hours kirtan seva, which is what is required if you live in the ashram, in the temple, and it's an actual department of the temple, just like there's the pujari department, the preaching department, the maha, the prasadam distribution department. So just like that, the 24-hour kirtan was its own department in Krishna Balaram Mandir, and Ayendra Prabhu was the head of that department. And in that 6 months, I didn't join. I didn't actually take the responsibility of having to be there every day and take up the responsibility of like doing a night shift kirtan, etc. And I remember at the end of it just feeling again so conflicted, because I had a ticket to go back to the US, but no plan for what to do once I was back. And I remember trying to change the ticket, get a refund, and I couldn't. For whatever reason, it was like unchangeable ticket. And I remember just being I remember asking my parents, my family, what should I do? And they wouldn't give me the answer, but they would kind of like, you know, direct me to see things about myself. Like, what do you want? You know, what do you feel? Like, do you feel unfulfilled? Do you still, you know? So I came to the conclusion that I need to stay and I need to move in and join. And it was like, this is why I came, and 6 months have gone by and I haven't done it yet. I've participated in the kirtans a lot, but I haven't done the sacrifice it takes to do it every single day as your service. It's more like on the enjoyment level before. Okay, I'll come when I feel like it, and I'll only come for the kirtan before Ayendra Prabhu and be there for Ayendra Prabhu's, but I don't, you know, have to be there at any other time. And so I made that decision to go ahead and just throw away my ticket, or just let it expire, you could say. And I asked Ayendra Prabhu, could I move into the ashram? He said yes. And when I told him that actually I don't have a ticket to leave Vrindavan, he got so happy with me, actually. And I remember him saying, yeah, now you're actually understanding what is Vrindavan. So, kind of, he was very much in this mood of giving up everything and running to Vrindavan and running to Krishna and just to hell with everything else in this material world. So I spent then, this was April or May 2009, and I moved in to the ashram, and thus began the great Indian summer. And the power outages, and there's no AC in the temple room, you know, it's an open courtyard. And so I moved in, and my shifts were 10 to 1 at night and 47 in the evening. So that's the time Ayendra Prabhu would come, 6:30, and then 10 to 1 is a night shift. And in the summer, back then at least, almost everyone would leave. And we had maybe like 5 people on the whole 24-hour kirtan who like were committed, you know, they had to be there, and we had to cover like 24 hours. And I remember the 1 to 4 shift after mine was 1 person, and it meant if you wanted to use the toilet even, he would have to call the chokidar, the guard, to come in and chant, keep the name chanting while he goes and uses the bathroom and come back. But this idea of Akhanda Nam, non-stop chanting of the holy name, was very much instilled in us as a yagya, to never let it drop. Never, like someone in between kirtans and kirtan leaders, it was ingrained in us, just like the harmonium playing stopped, and you just be like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, and you would just chant until the next person started the melody, you know? And that had been done and kept going by Ayendra Prabhu since 1986. So we all understood that like this was a yagya, a sacrifice. And I stayed through the summer, and what that did, because so many devotees left, it gave me the opportunity to become his main mridanga player during that time period. And it made me really step up and learn how to do kirtan with him, how to read the kirtan leader, become sensitive to that, the changes done in the kirtan, the movements in the kirtan, and the different beat rhythm changes. And it was just a really wonderful period, the summer of 2009. And because there were so few devotees, and there were 2 of us on this 10 to 1 night shift, so it meant we'd take turns. One of us would lead for like an hour and a half, and the other would play mridanga, and then we'd switch. So it was like a lot of practice, you can say. And on night shift, there's no pressure. You're not singing in front of people. There's really only 1 person responding. If that, maybe you're doing the response as well. There were like a few devotees here and there that would come and help us, but there was no one that had to be there like we did and was committed to it. And I remember, again, you know, Ayendra Prabhu didn't want to boost our ego, but I heard from another devotee that he really appreciated mine and this other devotee's sacrifice to stay in the summer and do this night shift for 6 months. And he was really happy that we decided to stay the summer and do this yagya, this sacrifice, and stay in Vrindavan in the hot summer months. So anyways, by the end of it, in 2010, I spent a year and a half continuously serving in the 24-hour kirtan under Ayendra Prabhu, and having his association, doing kirtan with him almost every day. Generally, he would lead every single day unless he had some vocal problems. And anyways, during that time period, amazingly, another great personality gave me their love and association and encouragement, and that was, well, both of them, Yamuna Devi and Dinatarani Matajis. And they came to Vrindavan in, I think it was around November 2009, and they held very small, private, sensitive kirtans in their rooms in the MVT, in the guest house area where they were staying, and only maybe like 6, 7 of us would be invited to come do the kirtans. So through their kind of direction, I learned also simultaneously how to do kirtan in a very conscious, sensitive way. It was such a stark contrast. I would go from Ayendra Prabhu's kirtan at 6:30, finish that, be completely exhausted, sweating, and then run to their room and do kirtan with them for like an hour or so. And it was just such a big difference. But basically, I can see, looking back, I was being trained in kind of all varieties and all ways of doing kirtan, and really all approaches to how you should do kirtan. So we have like the very intimate kirtans, and then I was experiencing the very outward preaching mentality kirtans, and learning how to lead both, actually. And and again, I went with Yamuna Devi and Dinatarani to Mayapur in 2010, and we studied or sang Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati bhajans, and went deeply into those every day, a different one, reading the translation and singing together. And again, it was intimate kirtans. But basically, they took me under their wing and showed me so much love and care, and encouraged me in the performance of kirtan in the right mood, with the right attitude. And basically, I came back to the US in the summer of 2010, and I went on the bus tour again, and by that time I had spent 1.5 years in Vrindavan and grown so much, experienced so much, and become kind of molded into this new person. And I just remember that summer kind of unleashing it at all the Rath Yatras. Just, people could tell I had changed, you know. Krishna consciousness was more of a serious affair by that time. Kirtan was a serious affair. And that summer is when Ayendra Prabhu passed away, and we were all many of us were in Toronto at Toronto Rath Yatra when that happened. And it was obviously very traumatic for many of us. But I personally felt resolve to continue sharing kirtan in his mood, you could say, or how he had taught me. And many of us felt immediately the resolve to keep this 24-hour kirtan going non-stop and never let it stop. So he passed away, but still there was devotees that took up that service, even missing like his funeral, you know, to stay and chant in the temple room, because we knew that's what would make him happy. I wasn't there for it, but by Kartik, October, he passed away in July, and I made it there in October, and there was just that resolve from all of the devotees who had had his association to keep the 24-hour kirtan going in its full, illustrious way. And I spent another 6 months there, and in that time, in January 2011, is when my good friend Manu, who had also spent time with Yamuna Devi and Ayendra Prabhu experienced kirtans with both of them. He took over the service of managing and helping create the now known Haridas Mellows Kirtan Festival in Belgium at the Haridas temple there. And at the time it was pretty small, like maybe 250, 300 people would come, if that. And there was no international kirtan leaders brought in. He would bring Madhava Prabhu, who was close by in Switzerland, and Sachinandan Swami, who was close by in Germany. But devotees from the UK would come, and around Europe. But because he had a friendship with me and he recognized something in me, he invited me to come sing at this festival. And I went January, and like Nadiya was there, but we didn't even really, we said hello, we didn't know each other. But he gave me the opportunity to share kirtan with the world, actually, because that was like kind of one of the first Mayapur TV broadcast kirtan festivals. And so I sang, and somehow a lot of the world saw it. And from there I went back to Vrindavan, but by May the next kirtan festival was the 24-hour kirtan festival in Birmingham, UK. And the devotees who organized that festival were very much attracted to Ayendra Prabhu and doing kirtan or organizing kirtan under his guidance and in his mood. And so they invited me to come. They had been at that Haridas Mellows Kirtan Festival, and they invited me to come to that festival in the UK. And I came, and at that festival is actually when our relationship started. I remember she wasn't actually supposed to be at that festival, but by some circumstances she came last minute. And I knew she was also a kirtan leader, but because it was last minute, she didn't have a slot to sing. And they had given me an hour and a half. And for us in Vrindavan, we were only used to leading like half-hour kirtans. They were very kind of like whirlwind, like you went through it quickly and the kirtan was done in a half hour. So to me, an hour was like really daunting, and I always had to like map out, okay, I'm gonna sing 2 melodies, the first half hour will be this one, and then I'll go into this other one. So I remember being quite scared, actually, with an hour and a half, and I offered a half hour of the slot to her. And I said, I know you lead kirtan, do you want a half hour of my time? And she was like, okay. And so anyways, that summer changed my life. I ended up going around Europe to many different festivals and events and sharing kirtan alongside her. And from there, that's when our relationship started. And basically, since then, it's been almost non-stop. In 2016, we both decided to settle, actually, and live in a home. Before that, it was like in a room in either her parents' house in the UK or mine in North Carolina, or with friends, or at different kirtan festivals. We basically traveled non-stop for about 4 years and together, and we settled in Alachua. We have a home there now, and we have a 2-year-old daughter. But still, for me, I've understood from Ayendra Prabhu and many other great chanters the importance of the gift I've been given, and the importance of sharing that gift with others, and not letting it rot and stagnate, and just by sitting in one place and, you know, doing kirtan once a week for the deities there. So even though it is obviously, or maybe not obviously to all of you, it's a big austerity to travel with a 2-year-old daughter. We both have understood the deep gravity of what we've been given and how important it is to try our best to share it with people and devotees around the world. And so we've been on the road since May 21st, 1 month now. We left for Sadhu Sangha retreat, then flew to New York for the Rath Yatra festival there, drove to New Vrindavan. That was last weekend, and Monday night we flew from Pittsburgh to Portland, and we're here now, and we get back next Monday to Alachua, and 1 week later we fly to Europe, and we spend 2 months there, and we'll be back August 27th. 3 days later we'll fly to the Houston Kirtan Festival, and hopefully we'll be home like beginning of September, and who knows after that, but we've been invited to Dubai, to London in November, and we're just like, almost want to shoot ourselves because our daughter finally got into a good sleeping rhythm, but that's been destroyed. And but we know that this chanting is a yajna, and it pleases Krishna and his devotees the most. So it's almost impossible to refuse the opportunities given to us, you know. Sachinandan Swami shared with me privately, it's not necessarily a private instruction, but he shared with me recently, just take every opportunity that comes to you to serve the holy name, and you will see mysterious things will happen. And all these worries that you have, where will I get money to support my family, etc., how will I live my life? He actually shared that with us 4 years ago. We didn't know where we were going to live, when we would have children. He said to us, just try and take your relationship with the holy name not necessarily seriously, but he worded it like this. He said, what if Krishna's actually there, actually real? You know? And he said, what if he's actually there in his holy name? I'm not saying he is, but he said, Amal, just ask this question amongst yourselves. And he said, you will see all these questions you have, where should I live? What should I do? When should we have children? They will all be answered. And looking back, we can see that has been the experience. We almost haven't decided anything ourselves. It's fallen into place by Krishna's mercy. And so like he said, just continue to try and take the opportunities to serve the holy name that come your way, and mysterious things will happen, and we are experiencing it. And Ayurveda Prabhu shared the same thing with me, to just try and perform this Sankirtan for the pleasure of Krishna only, and engage his devotees, and all these questions, all of material facility, resources, liberation, etc. He said, Amal, they will be there with their hands folded to you. Do it with the highest goal in mind, and everything else will follow along. You won't have to worry. So it's been a test of faith and reality, but we know we have to keep trying. So that's kind of my journey.
grew up in England, even though I don't have the accent. And I went to Gurukul and we learned harmonium, some mridanga, the bhajans. But I wouldn't say I ever had a passion for kirtan. I was actually cripplingly shy growing up. Like even this is making me feel shaky.
It's funny, both of us can lead kirtan in front of thousands of people, but you ask us to speak and it's just like, for some reason.
Worst nightmare.
So this is helping us grow, actually.
And yeah, I remember I'm a disciple of Shivaram Swami, and he's very serious about kirtan. And so he would come to the manor, Bhaktivinoda Manor, and he would do these kirtan nights. He'd go till 3 a.m. and I would never take part in them. I stayed for half an hour because my mom made me. And
Do you want to stay?
no. We would be playing outside. We're like, yes, it's kirtan night. We can play outside all night. So it was never actually a big passion for me. Growing, as a child, it would be fun. I liked the morning program. We'd go every morning to the morning program. That was nice. And we'd lead RT every Friday in the temple room. And that was also, we do it as a group, so it was fun. But I think when I was maybe 15, in England they have this festival team, and they travel around to different festivals. And we had Tribhuvanath Prabhu, and he would lead these rip-roaring kirtans, and he would always be joking with my mom, come on, let me take her. I want to take her preaching in Africa. My mom was like, never ever are you going to do that. But he would encourage us to come to the festivals, and me and my friend, we started going for Saturday night Harinaam in London. And we'd go, not every week, but almost every week. And we did that for about 3 years. And from there, I just developed this, liking of kirtan. And we would go have fun, we would dance in the Harinaam, and then I started, when Shivaram Swami would come, I'd stay in the kirtan, and be like, oh, I've been missing out all these years, like it's so nice, and I began to develop a taste for the holy name, and we'd still go on Harinaams, and then this world of sit-down kirtan became much more prominent. Madhava Prabhu would come, and he started Sunday night kirtan at the manor. So we would go for that also. I could play harmonium, but I would never put myself forward. I wasn't a kirtan leader. I liked kirtan, and I would go, and we would dance in kirtan, but leading was just like this way world over there that only some people do. And I remember on my 19th birthday, we all wanted to go for Harinaam, so we went. And all of a sudden they just handed me the microphone, and they're like, it's your birthday, you have to sing, you have to sing. And I was like, no, I don't want to. So me and my friend led together, we held the microphone in between us, and we sang together, and something just kind of broke, and I was like, oh, actually, it's not the worst thing in the world to have to sing. Not the scariest thing. And that summer, I also went on the bus tour.
I wasn't on it.
He went the year before, I went 2006, and he went 2007, so we never met. And it was one of those years where hardly anyone knew how to do kirtan. They were all busy doing something else, and yeah, Jai Shirade and Maram discovered that I could play harmonium and sing in key. They're like, you're our kirtan leader! And so they just put me on the stage in the Rathayatras, and they're like, sing, and I knew how to play 3 melodies on the harmonium, and I sang the same 3 all summer, and everyone was like, not the same melody again. But it just kick-started this kirtan life for me, and I came back to England, and we started Friday night bhajans at the temple. some older guru coolies started it, and same thing, I would never sing there either. The older ones would sing. And, slowly they moved away and it got handed down to us and we kept it going. It's still going, but for 10 years we were, keeping it pretty strong. And we started singing every week, and I started singing at some different festivals. I was good friends with Manu, who I'd met on the bus tour. So the very first Bada Haridas, actually he wasn't even there. It was a Holy Name weekend. And Shivaram Swami came, and he heard me sing, and he was like, I had taken initiation from him just a month before that festival, or maybe a year before actually. I was 19, and he came and he was like, hey, you didn't tell me that you sang? Like, why have you been holding this secret back from me? And I was like, sorry, Gurmaj, I didn't mean to, I didn't know. And we can have it in a minute. And
Last resort.
it's midnight on the East Coast, so she's very tired.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so he asked me to sing with him at this festival in Bangladesh, and then Manu was there, and he was like, they started the official Bangladesh Mellows, and I started singing there. We've been every year since, and it was just kind of like a little, one festival invited me, another festival invited me, and still I was like, why are you asking me to come? Like, I'm no Amala Harinaam. I just felt very insignificant, but by that time, kirtan was just a part of life. It's what you do, what we would do in our spare time, if we were ever at a birthday, anything, all we would do is kirtan. And Shivaram Swami really encouraged me to sing with him and just keep going, and here we are. I'm a teacher, an elementary school teacher. That's what I was doing when we met. But I was telling Bada Haridas today, I was always looking out the window, just like, this isn't really quite fulfilling me. Like, I want to be doing something different in my life. And I didn't know what it was. And then we met and we unexpectedly just started traveling. It was just never a plan that I had to be a traveling kirtaniya, as they say. It just kind of all fell into place just because we loved kirtan. And I remember the first month after we got married, and I had no paycheck coming in, because I'd been working since I was 15. I'd always known where all of my money was coming from. And all through university, I was teaching for 4 years. I built up my salary, and September came. We got married in August, and September came, and there was no money coming in, and I was like, oh my God, having a nervous breakdown. I was like, what are we gonna do, Alma? We're gonna be bankrupt, what are we gonna do? And he was like, don't worry, I have faith, I have all these lessons from all these wonderful devotees. I have faith that Krishna's gonna take care of us. We just have to do kirtan and everything will be fine. And I was like, you're wrong. I just had no faith at all. And slowly I started to okay, well, this is what we're doing now. I'm not going back to teaching. We had a kind of continued invitation just to keep going to different places, and it was nice. I wasn't teaching, we were having a break, but in the back of my mind was always this anxiety, like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna retire? Because that's just how I'd been trained in England, and Amal really taught me that Krishna, he really will take care of you if you just surrender to doing kirtan. And we've been married for 7 years this summer. 12 to 19, yeah. 7 years this summer, and Krishna has completely taken care of us, and it does, mysterious things really do happen, but I still get bewildered sometimes that we just get invited to all these places, and I can't figure out why, but we just love kirtan and believe in it. And even coming to Portland, we were on the plane, we were like, why are we coming here? I don't know, it was such a hellish journey. But Bada Haridas has so much wonderful wisdom to share, so here we are. And we get a lot of mercy by traveling, and we just get to do kirtan with everybody and share a little bit of what's been shared with us. So,
Timeline got a little bit skewed here. Should we chant a little bit? Can we do that? Or like take sada? Or are we done? What's that? Nadiya's turn. Really?
Haribo!
Tomorrow we're starting our Kirtan immersion weekend. We have some wonderful topics to discuss, things that maybe you hadn't thought about, Kirtan, a little bit, or maybe you have, but it's nice to hear. And we're quite sure that these gems from our acharyas and teachers will strengthen our faith in the holy name. Maybe one day I'll have faith that Krishna really is there in his holy name. Concept. I've heard that before. And maybe he will really take care of us. Anyway, so we'll be discussing these things. Very wonderful, and we'll be doing a lot more kirtan. So you should be fully refreshed by the end of the weekend. Please join us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sachinanda and Prabhu, for having us come.
So, all I know is that Bada Haridas was reciprocating with the youth who had a deep affection for chanting the holy name, and he's been meditating on this since last year. In spite of all of his services, to take that energy and time to do that speaks volumes about who he is as a devotee and his genuine love for the holy name, but he wants to spread it and spread it in the association of the Sangha. So he's thought about the itinerary for a long time, probably for about 6 months or so. So, and like what we said, they've come from a long distance. They arrived at our home at 3 a.m. Tuesday morning.
Crash
You can imagine how hard that is with a little child. The responsibility for that. So they've taken a lot of effort to come here and give us association and guidance. And we're very fortunate that is occurred. So I think Prabhuji's humble request for everyone is come and keep coming with every program, because you will get more out of it. And we as a congregation will get more out of it if we can learn how to chant the holy name together. So please come. The itinerary has been sent out. Invite your friends. And we hope to see more every day for this retreat that here. Prabhupada ki jai. You want to speak?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving your association your time.